Hey everyone, welcome to the Return of the Logos podcast, where we're attempting to return logic to a chaotic world by shining a light on the shadows. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Return of the Logos podcast. Thanks so much everyone for listening, for subscribing, everything that you guys are doing to help us out. We really appreciate it. You can now catch us on Rumble at Return of the Logos, YouTube at Return of the Logos, and you can also follow us on X at Returning Logos. It's some pretty fun little political hot takes on there. So check us out on all the social medias, and we appreciate everything you guys are doing for us.
According to the United States intelligence community, domestic terrorism from white supremacists is the most lethal terrorist threat in the homeland. To that end, our administration is carrying out the first ever comprehensive effort to tackle the threat posed by domestic terrorism, including white supremacy. We're doing so by taking action to reduce online radicalism and recruitment to violence. We're also disrupting networks that inspire violence and domestic terrorists by providing resources to communities to build resilience. We cannot and must not give hate any safe harbor. Any safe harbor.
So you may be asking yourself, Isaiah, why am I hearing Joe Biden talk about white supremacy and domestic terrorism?
Yeah, Isaiah, why am I listening to Biden from 3 years ago? The most lethal, meaning deadly. I don't know. I'd like to see the numbers.
I'd like to see the numbers too. Unfortunately, those are pretty hard to find.
Yeah, they don't really exist.
I would say it's probably less than the 3,000 people who were killed on 9/11. The reason that I played that clip was because there is a real misconception on the left that violence is inherently a right-wing issue. I believe that the politicians know for a fact that that's not true. They know that they can spew those lines to their followers, and they get them to believe it. The biggest threat of domestic terrorism is white supremacy, which is, people consider that is a right-wing problem. I won't even get into the fact that the Ku Klux Klan is an outgrowth of the Democrat Party. We're not even going to get into that.
Why aren't we going to get into that?
Because I don't want to hear the stupid argument, well, the parties switched, and that is a whole other episode.
Yeah.
We will go ahead and say right now, unless you're a pacifist, political violence is inherent to the extremes of any political ideology. Today we're going to talk about left-wing political violence, a brief history.
I don't think you're allowed to talk about that.
No? Okay. Crap. Well, we got to scrap the episode then.
Yeah, we're going to have to stop this right now because everybody knows the most lethal threat is the 100 people in Arkansas that
had tiki torches from Home Depot.
Had tiki torches from Home Depot, and you know that they have like inappropriate flags on their garages at their homes too.
Oh yeah, that big red one with the blue X on it with white stars in it. Are we allowed to say?
The General Lee?
Yeah, the General Lee. There's a reason they called them Dixie Democrats.
Sorry, as you were saying.
We're going to do a little history lesson. And some of you who pay attention to current politics and current news, you may already know where we're going with this. So as I'm going through some of this, you might hear some common themes, some common words, some common verbiage that these people today are saying.
No.
Trust me, Andy.
No.
Trust me.
I don't believe it. 20 guys in Arkansas, they're the most lethal threat to the homeland.
I'm going to prove it to you. They play with words. The words that they use, it's like they're trying to put lipstick on a pig.
Can we say that this is snapshots? This is not meant to be a comprehensive coverage.
Correct. Yeah, this is not a full-blown history lesson.
So in the context of the program, these are snapshots in time.
Correct. Snapshots in time. Where I'm sourcing most of this from is from Britannica.com. and Hawaii.edu, CSIS.org.
That's an awesome website, Hawaii.edu.
Yes, Hawaii.edu has a banger of a website.
Go check that bad boy out, guys.
Straight from 1998.
Yeah.
Actually, that was made before WordPress, it looks like.
It looks like a bulletin board system that I used to use before the internet was the internet.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go back to the 1790s. For you history buffs, you might know that that's right around the time of the French Revolution.
Oui, oui.
Oh, oui, oui, monsieur. Was that before or after they sent us the Statue of Liberty?
That's a good question.
When did we get that?
You hear they want it back?
Yeah, they want it back.
Fucking douchebags.
Are we allowed to say Indian givers anymore?
You assholes. You'd be speaking fucking German if it wasn't for us.
Yes, everyone conveniently forgets that all of Europe would be speaking German now if it weren't for us.
I'm going to come off very uncultured, and I don't give a shit.
Well, what have you given the world apart from George Bush, Cheerios, and the Fry Master?
Chinese food?
Chinese food.
That's from China.
Pizza?
Italy.
Chimichanga.
Mexican.
Really, smarty pants? What did French land give us?
We invented democracy, existentialism, and the blowjob.
Those are three pretty good things.
Hey.
Well, that last one's pretty cool.
French Revolution, 1790s. Well, let me just start with this. There was this episode called The Reign of Terror. Reign of Terror, period of the French Revolution from September 5th, 1793 to July 27, 1794. With civil war spreading from the Vendée and hostile armies surrounding France on all sides, the revolutionary government decided to make terror the order of the day and to take harsh measures against those suspected of being enemies of the revolution. Nobles, priests, and hoarders. I don't know why they threw hoarders in there.
I don't think it's like the show that...
No, you don't. They weren't going into people's garages to find it packed full of...
They're like, why do you keep your poop in a jar? Seems weird.
Why are all of your pigs shoved into...
Why do you have 300 cats and your bathroom doesn't work?
I would assume hoarders, they're actually referencing the rich. In Paris, a wave of executions followed. Representatives on mission and surveillance committees instituted local terrors. The terror had an economic side, embodied a price control measure. Price controls? Who would want price controls? A price control measure demanded by the lower classes of Paris, and a religious side that was embodied in the program of de-Christianization pursued by the followers of Jacques Hébert. During the terror, the Committee of Public Safety, that doesn't sound Orwellian at all.
It's all about safety. Yep. It's for your own good.
The Committee of Public Safety, of which Maximilien de Robespierre was the most prominent member, remember that name, Robespierre, exercised virtual dictatorial control over the French government. In the spring of 1794, it eliminated its enemies to the left, the Héberists, and to the right, the Indulgents. The committee obtained the law which suspended a suspect's right to public trial and to legal assistance and left the jury a choice only of acquittal or death.
No lawyer, no witnesses. What sort of due process is this?
Your guilt has been determined. This is merely a sentencing hearing.
Now what will it be? Death or exile?
Very well.
Death! By exile.
The Great Terror that followed, in which about 1,400 persons were executed, contributed to the fall of Robespierre on July 27. During the Reign of Terror, at least 300,000 suspects were arrested, 17,000 were officially executed, and perhaps 10,000 died in prison or without trial. The primary method of execution back then was, Andy?
Guillotine?
Yes, sir. Ding, 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 ding. Give that man a prize. Which actually, personally, I don't really feel is that brutal of a death. It's just like, cuts your head off, and it's pretty instantaneous.
They say you're alive for like 3 or 4 seconds.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
You don't have any lungs, so you can't say anything. So,
Yeah.
so nobody really knows. But
Yeah.
they say that the eyes and the brain are still working for like a couple seconds.
You
Like,
imagine look down because they had a basket to catch the head.
Oh, man.
Imagine like the head looking up at you and the eyes are moving around.
why didn't someone tell me I gained so much weight?
I found another statistic to go along with that. 17,000 officially killed by guillotine, 10 to 12,000 killed without trial, and around 11,000 die in prison.
Okay, so can you break this down for me a little bit? So basically, we've got a left-wing government that has decided that a certain group of the population is a threat to safety or something?
We'll go a little bit deeper into this. So that was just specifically about the Night of Terror,
Okay.
which didn't go into a lot of the political ideologies. It actually made it seem like they were kind of a centrist government.
Well, and it's weird over in Europe too, because even the conservatives are fucking left-wing nut
Left-wing,
jobs.
yeah,
They're all batshit over there, basically.
for sure.
Yeah.
So I mentioned the name Robespierre. He actually led a group called the Jacobins. So the Jacobins were the party that they were talking about that took control.
Okay, maybe that'll help provide some context.
This will give a little more context. I just wanted to go over the reign of terror. So after the overthrow of the monarchy in August 1792, the club entered a new phase as one of the major groups directing the revolution. With the proclamation of the Republic in September, the club changed its name to Society of the Jacobins, Friends of Liberty and Equality. We're the Friends of Liberty and Equality.
Yeah.
It acquired a democratic character with the admission of the leftist Montagnard deputies in the National Convention, which was the new legislature, and also a more popular one as it responded to the demands of the Parisian working and artisan class. Through the early phase of the convention, the club was a meeting place for the Montagnard. I wish I spoke French sometimes, but then I would be gay.
I can't understand a word you said the whole time.
Did you eat some peanut butter or something?
Yeah, you sound like a dog with peanut butter on the roof of your mouth.
I think what you are hearing is my accent. I am French.
You say you're French?
Oui.
We? No, we are not French. We're American, because you're in America, okay? Greatest country on the planet.
Montagnards. And then it agitated for the execution of the king in January 1793 and for the overthrow of the moderate Girondins.
You wish you spoke French, but then you'd be gay. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Anything wrong with that.
My name is Jean Girard. This is my husband, Gregory.
Did he just say husband?
Sweet Lord.
Room's starting to spin real fast. Because of gayness.
With the establishment of the revolutionary dictatorship beginning in the summer of 1793, the local Jacobin clubs became instruments of the reign of terror. Often local government officials were replaced with members of clubs. As centers of public virtue, the clubs watched over people whose opinions were suspect, led the de-Christianizing movement, and organized revolutionary festivals. The Parisian club was increasingly associated with Robespierre, who dominated the revolutionary government through his position on the Committee of Public Safety.
Can we pause for a second?
Sure.
Okay. Revolutionary festivals. That sounds sort of like a protest, maybe?
Like a summer of love.
Maybe a bunch of activists.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting
I mean, I
word
wonder
it.
if that's just like a gay French way of saying
riot and protest.
Community organizer and political activists. You know what I mean?
Yeah, revolutionary festival. I don't necessarily know the intent behind the name or that verbiage, but it is interesting. I never really grabbed that.
Well, because it says that they policed local markets and that they were looking for people with suspect opinions, right?
Yeah. And they led the de-Christianizing movement. So that's the other thing. During this time, there was a huge push by the intellectuals and by the nobility to wipe out Christians and the Christian belief.
This is part of the Enlightenment.
It was.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No. Yeah.
I just noticed revolutionary festivals. That seems like a gay French way of saying.
After I finish talking about the Jacobins and all this, we'll kind of go through and talk about it.
Fair enough.
So it supported Robespierre in his attacks on the enemies of the revolution and helped him resist the growing demands of the discontented workers for a controlled economy. After the fall of Robespierre, the Parisian Club, now a symbol of dictatorship and terror, was permanently closed on 21 Brumaire, year 3.
That's not a real date.
That's not a real date. They tried to institute like their own gay French.
No, sorry guys. Only America can do that.
Yeah, only us can do that.
Yeah, we rejected the metric system.
Yeah,
but nobody else.
And
gets
the rest
to do
of
that
the
kind
world,
of stuff.
the rest of the world will bend to our use of inches and feet.
General Washington.
Sit, please. We need your strength for the fight ahead. We fight for a country of our own, a new nation, where we choose our own laws.
Here, said sir.
Choose our own leaders.
Yes, sir.
And choose our own systems of weights and measures.
Why don't they just do it in metric? Centimeters make more sense.
Let's confess, it feels a little complicated, sir. Why not use meters and kilometers?
We will, soldier. But only in certain unpopular sports like track and swimming. Distance will be measured in inches, feet, yard, and mile. So 12 inches to a foot?
12 feet to a yard.
If it were only so simple. 3 feet to a yard.
And how many yards to a mile?
Nobody knows.
Okay, well, how many feet to a mile?
5,280, of course. It's a simple number that everyone will remember.
We'll make Europeans throw little fits.
But one day, if we are brave, we will get rid of the U and a lot of British words like color and armor. But by God, we will keep the British U in the word glamour.
Only glamour, sir?
Only glamour. That is my dream for our countrymen. A melting pot of different measurements that will make Europeans throw little tantrums. In short, a land of liberty.
Aluminium.
I never understood aluminium. There's no U. Aluminium.
You know what? I researched it just because I thought it was so fucking weird. Turns out the guy that invented aluminum couldn't decide what he wanted to call it. He changed his mind, decided it was aluminium. By that point in time, it was like too late. But because he was European, they were like, okay, he said it was
aluminium.
So now we're going to do that. And America's like, fuck off.
No, we're right. It's aluminum. That's how it's spelled. Hooked on phonics worked for me, bitch.
Yeah. Sorry. That was a not fun fact.
I thought it was interesting though. I was always curious as to why they actually said aluminium.
No, because he called it aluminium, then he changed his mind and he called it aluminum. Then he changed his mind again and called it aluminium.
Gotcha. Okay.
We're like, no, dude, you don't get to change your mind like 3 times.
No, especially when you spell it this way.
Yeah.
Like I said, hooked on
we
phonics.
We don't care if you discovered
I mean,
it
they
or not.
invented the language. Do they not know how to read it? That's not how it's spelled. Anyway.
That would be a fun episode. just dogging on fucking Europeans. just fucking.
Oh man.
It would just be for us.
Yeah.
Like nobody in America would care. They'd just be like, what are these guys doing?
You know, there's a lot of anti-Europeans out there that might like it.
I don't know.
It might hurt our downloads in Europe though.
I would dig it. Maybe we would get a reaction, like a negative reaction.
They're gonna like shit their pants.
Maybe we could become infamous if we can't become famous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey man, I'm not in this for the fame. All right, so just a little bit more about the Jacobins, kind of an overview of their actual political ideology. Keep in mind, like you're going to hear some words. Remember, this is about 250 years ago. So like you've already heard like Republican, and things like that. Just
Democratic.
Democratic. Remember, these words are kind of constantly in flux. And also, this is from a European perspective. When you hear Republican, it's obviously not talking about modern American Republican politicians, right?
It doesn't mean conservative. If it's European, and even the conservative parties are, that basically means center left.
Yeah.
In Europe.
Yeah.
And probably worse historically.
So, political ideology of the Jacobins. Convinced that the unequal distribution of private goods would lead to political inequality, Robespierre favored fixed limits on the accumulation of wealth. All people were created equal, they believed, because they are naturally good and virtuous. Tradition, custom, and religion were condemned as impediments to the attainment of universal equality. Social inequality would be eliminated by the spread of education and enlightened reason. Confident of their personal virtue, the Jacobins condemned their opponents as not only wrong, but also evil. Moreover, this band of the elect felt obligated to root out political heresies and blasphemies.
Good Lord.
Yeah. As historian
Is this
Crane...
a political philosophy or a fucking religion?
It's interesting that you say that. As historian Crane Britton in 1961 points out, the Jacobins were mostly prosperous middle-class people who became religious fanatics. After the ascendancy of Robespierre, Jacobinism was transformed into a kind of quasi-religious cult. Robespierre saw himself as the prophet of a new civic religion. He envisioned a spiritual republic, a republic of virtue rooted in holy equality and the sacred rights of man. Under his leadership, a totalitarian dictatorship was created through the Committee of Public Safety, which we've heard before. His religion of virtue would bring a new moral world and the regeneration of humanity. This creed also provided a moral justification for the terror. Purity became a political fetish. Anyone who did not enthusiastically embrace the new faith was suspected of harboring anti-revolutionary opinions and summarily condemned to the guillotine. Andy, let's discuss.
Jeez. These people are batshit.
They were batshit crazy. The way that it comes out to me, they believed in laissez-faire economic policies. They didn't want the nationalization of all property, but they thought the unequal distribution of private goods would lead to political inequality. So they wanted everyone to have the same amount of stuff.
And they favored limits on the accumulation of wealth.
Correct.
Hence the hoarders.
The hoarders, right.
Yeah. Basically people earning and saving. It was virtuous not to save, according to these fuckers.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm doing my duty to kill you because you don't believe in the faith.
Yeah, and they say the social inequality would be eliminated by the spread of education and enlightened reason.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this is juxtaposed with them, not anti-Christian. What was the?
Dechristianization.
Dechristianization.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is enlightenment.
Yeah, it's clearly enlightenment. They believed all people were created equal because they are naturally good and virtuous.
No, we've talked about this before.
We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're not naturally good. This is the fallacy of the noble savage.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it's just not true. The funny thing is that if all people are created equal, then why the hell do you have the right to kill them if they don't believe what you believe?
Or more so, if they're all created equal, why is it that you have to put your thumb on the scale to make someone win?
Right, exactly.
That wouldn't otherwise.
Exactly. Why do you have to put your thumb on the scale?
Why do you need to distribute everything to everybody? If everybody's created equal, then everybody has the same ability.
Exactly.
From each according to their abilities, to each
according to their need.
According to their need.
That's a motto that will...
Yeah, that kind of fits all of this.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, they talk a lot about inequality. I just think it's interesting. It's literally like a religious, anti-religious zealousy.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you may already be able to tell where we're going with this now. And if you pay attention to modern day, you're already probably seeing the parallels. I would hope so, if you have your eyes open.
Yeah, let's pick the words. Inequality, universal equality, Social inequality.
Social inequality would be eliminated by the spread of education and enlightened reason.
Enlightened reason. Clubs watched over people whose opinions
Were
were
suspect.
suspect.
Yeah. Fixed limits on the accumulation of wealth. You had a right to private property, but only as much as they determined was appropriate for you.
Political heresies and blasphemes. See, that is religious. That's religious speak.
Yes. Personal virtue. Very clear parallels.
Yep.
Between this and the entire evolution of, in the parlance of our times, of left-wing ideology. So we're going to jump forward in time a little bit to the early 1900s to the Russian Revolution. Again, you history buffs may know, out of that, the Bolsheviks came to power.
That's a bunch of Bolshevik.
That's a bunch of Bolshevik. The Bolsheviks were led by Vladimir Lenin.
I am the walrus.
It's like Lenin said, you look for the person who will benefit and, you know...
I am the walrus?
You know, you'll, you know what I'm trying to say?
I am the walrus.
That fucking bitch.
Oh, yeah.
I am the walrus.
Shut the fuck up, Donnie. V.I. Lenin. Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov.
What the fuck is he talking about?
Donnie, you're out of your element. So the Bolsheviks, member of a wing of the Russian Social Democratic Workers' Party, that phrase sounds familiar, Social Democrat, which was led, again, by Vladimir Lenin, seized control of the government in Russia in October 1917 and became the dominant political power. The group originated at the party's second Congress in 1903 when Lenin's followers, insisting that party membership be restricted to professional revolutionaries, they assumed the name Bolsheviks and dubbed their opponents as Mensheviks. I will interject right here and just say they did take over the government without any bloodshed, no revolution, but we'll see later on what happens. They boycotted the elections of the first state Duma, or Russian parliament, in 1906 and refused to cooperate with the government and other political parties in subsequent Dumas. Furthermore, their methods of obtaining revenue, including robbery, were disapproved of by the Mensheviks and non-Russian Social Democrats. In 1912, Lenin, leading a very small minority, formed a distinct Bolshevik organization, decisively, although not formally, splitting the Russian Social Democratic Workers' Party. Also alienated many of his Bolshevik colleagues who had wished to undertake non-revolutionary activities or who had disagreed with Lenin on political tactics and on the infallibility of orthodox Marxism. By October, the Bolsheviks had majorities in the Petrograd, which was St. Petersburg, and Moscow Soviets. Immediately after the October Revolution, the Bolsheviks refused to share power with other revolutionary groups, with the exception of the left socialist revolutionaries. Eventually, they suppressed all rival political organizations. They changed their name to the Russian Communist Party of Bolsheviks in March 1918, to All Union Communist Party in December 1925, and to Communist Party of the Soviet Union in October 1952. This was the birth of the Russian Communist Party. When they overtook the government, it was a revolution, but it wasn't a military coup. There wasn't a lot of bloodshed. But a lot of the people who took control of the Russian Communist Party, they were quite brutal. Just to give you an idea of where the Communist Party ended up, there's a quote right here. "How long will you keep killing people?" asked Lady Astor of Stalin in 1931. 31, this was before World War II. Replied Stalin, "The process would continue as long as was necessary to establish a communist society." So Stalin believed they weren't even in true communism yet.
Yeah, the beatings will continue until morale improves.
So how many people died under Soviet rule? You're going to get mixed numbers because there's not a real good count.
And this would include Stalin and Lenin?
This would include Stalin, Lenin, and Khrushchev.
Yeah, so Stalin died in 1953. Then Khrushchev took over.
And then Brezhnev I can't remember if it was Khrushchev or Brezhnev. There was one that was actually a little bit more moderate, tried to curtail some of the killing.
He just didn't want to kill everybody in his country.
He didn't want to kill everybody.
Oh,
okay?
What a good guy.
The numbers you'll find are kind of mixed because nobody actually knows for sure. This is how many people were killed. There were so many people sent to gulags, literally disappeared. This was back in the day. There are even stories of they would take people out of photos after they killed them so that there was no trace of them. This took effort, right? Obviously.
Right.
But from Hawaii.edu, 61.9 million people, 54,769,000 of them citizens have been murdered by the Communist Party, the government of the Soviet Union. Old and young, healthy and sick, men and women, and even infants and infirm were killed in cold blood. They were not combatants in civil war or rebellions. They were not criminals. Indeed, nearly all were guilty of nothing. Some were from the wrong class, bourgeois, landowners, aristocrats, kulaks. Some were from the wrong nation or race. Some were from the wrong political faction. Or some were just their sons and daughters, wives and husbands, or mothers and fathers. And some were those occupied by the Red Army, Balts, Germans, Poles, Hungarians, Romanians. Then some were simply in the way of social progress, like the mass of peasants or religious believers. Or some were eliminated because of their potential opposition, such as writers, teachers, churchmen, or the military high command, or even high and low Communist Party members themselves. In fact, we have witnessed in the Soviet Union a true egalitarian social cleansing and flushing. No group or class escaped, for everyone and anyone could have had counter-revolutionary ancestors, class lineage, counter-revolutionary ideas or thought, or be susceptible to them. And thus, almost anyone was arrested, interrogated, tortured, and after a forced confession, shot or sentenced to the dry guillotine, slow death by exposure, malnutrition, and overworked in a forced labor camp. Part of this mass killing was genocide, and part of the killing was so random and idiosyncratic that journalists and social scientists have no concept for it, as in hundreds of thousands of people being executed according to preset government quotas. So that turned into a horrible nightmare. Estimates range from 50 million up to 80 million. People that they just didn't like, or people that didn't agree with them, or people who got in their way.
Pretty violent.
It's very violent.
Who would have thought that someone from Hawaii could have a logical perspective on communism?
Not Mazie Hirono.
Exactly.
Dude, I swear every time I see her talk, I think she's drunk.
I guess I shouldn't. Yeah. Oh, I get it. That's why the website looks like it's from 1994 because from the bulletin board system.
Yeah. You guys should check out Hawaii.edu. Like,
yeah, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Well,
you know when you stumble across a website and you're just like, oh my gosh, it's fluorescent green with like fake paper background.
Yeah. Manila background with the fake paper texture, and every link is bright blue underline.
It's great, dude. You sure they're from Hawaii though? I don't think anybody from Hawaii would speak that much truth about communism.
It's a shame because I've been to Hawaii and it's awesome.
Well, maybe
it's
they're
beautiful.
not communists. Maybe they just hate America. We're a evil imperialist occupying nation, I'm pretty sure.
I think we go in and take out the bad guys, and then we just give you a whole bunch of money and say, here you go, rebuild. You can pay us to build it for you. We'll do it.
Offer endless protection.
Yeah. Okay, so most people are a lot more familiar with the Soviet Union and the Communist Party of Russia and some of the atrocities that they did, so we're not going to go real deep into that.
It's crazy, though. Let me just say one thing about that. If you were to ask a college student these days to use Biden's language to their own people, what was more lethal? Hitler or communist Russia, Mao, and China?
Mm. Oh, they would say Hitler for sure because they're so uneducated.
So Lenin, Stalin, Mao should all be in the same category as Hitler. I understand Hitler's sort of like the king of fucking evil.
I think it's easier to point to Hitler because you can actually see he had a defined scope of people that he was killing. It's a pointed evil.
No doubt, freaking.
He was a bad dude. Don't get me wrong.
No doubt. Class, first class fucking asshole of, first degree fucking first class asshole. I'm not trying to stand up for Hitler. All I'm saying is why are these other murderous fucking dictators not in the same conversation? Why do college students have Che on a poster on their fucking wall? You know?
I believe that people that are communist sympathizers, they've infiltrated the universities.
Yeah, so Yuri Bezmenov, the defected KGB agent, if you all haven't listened to interviews with him,
you can find those on YouTube. And
it's so relevant too. It's crazy when he talks about the demoralization and everything that.
Yeah. I had this thought actually several years ago. I don't think that we actually won the Cold War. Toy with that for a little bit. See what you come up with. I have serious doubts that we actually won the Cold War. The point of the Soviet Union at that point was to spread communism basically through the entire world.
Yeah, so they lost, but that doesn't mean that we won. Is that what you're saying?
In that the Soviet Union dissolved.
Yes.
They lost, sort of.
But that doesn't mean that we won.
That doesn't mean that we won.
Look at our current state of affairs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, something to think about and mill over.
What you're saying would make Bernie Sanders very happy.
Do you support the onesies? Do you support the onesie? Do you support the onesie?
These onesies are for little babies. They're clothing for babies. Sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. So we're going to move forward in time a little bit, and we're going to bring it back to home into the late 60s and 70s to a little group you all probably have heard of.
Peace and Love.
Peace and Love, except for the Weather Underground. That was not all about peace and love. Weather Underground, a militant group of young white Americans formed in 1969 that grew out of the anti-Vietnam War movement. The Weather Underground, originally known as Weathermen, evolved from the Third World Marxists, a faction within Students for a Democratic Society, the major national organization representing the burgeoning New Left in the late 1960s. Members of the Weather Underground sought to advance communism through violent revolution, and the group called on America's youth to create a rearguard action against the U.S. government that would bring about its downfall. The original Weathermen, the action faction of the SDS, was led by Bernardine Dorn, James Mellon, and Mark Rudd, and advocated for street fighting as a method for weakening U.S. imperialism.
When I throw my fireball, I say, Hadouken!
Hadouken. Hadouken.
When I uppercut, I say, Shoryuken!
Shoryuken.
Hurricane kick, I say, Hatek-tek-fruket!
What?
What?
Hatek-tek.
Oh, it's Hatek-tek-fruket!
I'd like a fruit cup.
Hatek-tek-fruket!
Look at that fat kid.
It's Hatek-tek-fruket!
Attack the fruity kid?
Wow.
You can't be saying attack the fruity kid.
Not the video game, although that would kind of be awesome. At the SDS National Convention in June 1969, the Third World Marxists presented a position paper titled "You Don't Need a Weatherman to Know Which Way the Wind Blows" in the SDS newspaper. The article asserted, among other things, that black liberation was key to the movement's anti-imperialist struggle, and it emphasized the need for a white revolutionary movement to support liberation movements internationally. Because we the whites are the superior race, we must set free and liberate those who are not smart enough to liberate themselves. I don't know what accent I was trying to do. It wasn't quite German. It wasn't quite Polish, but it was pretty bad.
Black power.
Black power.
White power.
White power.
White power.
White power. White power. Fight for black power.
Sorry, I just went like Clayton Bigsby.
It was good.
For the last 15 years, a man named Clayton Bigsby has been the leading voice of the white supremacist movement in America.
Not sure we're in the right place. We're looking for Clayton Bigsby.
Well, look no further, fella. You found me.
How could this have happened? A black white supremacist. I noticed you referred to African Americans. What exactly is your problem?
How much time you got, buddy?
What if I were to tell you that you are an African American?
Sir, listen, I'm going to make this clear. I'm in no way, shape, or form involved in any niggerdom. You understand?
Yes, sir, but...
But nothing. Let's talk about Chinese people with their kung fu and all that silly chang-chang-chong talk. I can't understand you. Go back to your country, white power.
I was actually thinking about like Forrest Gump.
Shut that blonde man and get your white ass away from that window. Don't you know we in a war here?
Who's the baby killer?
This is my good friend I told you about. This is Forrest Gump. Forrest, this is Wesley. Wesley and I live together in Berkeley, and he's the president of the Berkeley chapter of SDS.
It's just this war and this son of a bitch Johnson. I think you should go back to Greenbow, Alabama.
Weathermen launched an offensive during the summer of 1969 that tried to recruit members at community colleges and high schools by marching into classrooms, tying up and gagging teachers, and presenting revolutionary speeches. At the Harvard Institute for International Affairs, the group smashed windows, tore out phones, and beat professors. From October 8th to 11th, 1969, Weathermen worked to organize thousands of young people in a direct assault on the police, whom they called pigs.
Hey, man, he's cool. He's cool. He's one of us.
Let me tell you about us.
What the hell?
Our purpose here is to protect our black leaders from the racial onslaught of the pig who wishes to brutalize our black leaders, rape our women, and destroy our black communities.
The group called this a national action, but newspaper called it Days of Rage. The protests were to begin on the second anniversary of the death of Argentine-Cuban revolutionary Che Guevara.
Of course. And were to coincide with the trial of the Chicago Eight men charged with conspiracy for their actions during the DNC convention in Chicago 1 year earlier. We were just talking about that earlier, so there you go.
1968,
1969, actually.
Yeah. On October 6, 1969, Weathermen members blew up a statue in Chicago's Haymarket Square that commemorated the policeman who had died in a riot in 1886. That message of confrontation and violence was echoed in the Weathermen signs and slogans which read, "Bring the war home," and "The time has come for fighting in the streets." However, Days of Rage proved to be only minimally successful. Frustrated by the inefficiency of traditional forms of political protest, the Days of Rage and other anti-war demonstrations throughout 1969, the Weathermen members called for a National War Council meeting of the SDS that December. Members of the group discussed the need to instruct themselves in the use of firearms and bombs in order to target and attack sites of power in the United States and discussed the need to kill police. By early 70, the Weathermen had split into several underground cells throughout the country. These cells, usually with 3 to 5 men and women living together in a house, were connected to the Weathermen leadership, called the Weather Bureau. They're so creative. By active members who provided above-ground support. The cells were located prominently in Berkeley, California, Chicago, Detroit, and New York City.
No.
Not Berkeley.
No, not Chicago.
No way.
Not New York.
I mean, those are just, good family values towns.
Yeah, those are bastions of America. I mean, that's what they say there's about 400 of them.
Yeah, that was in 1970 or 69. That's what they estimated.
Mm-hmm.
And they were, interestingly, in cells around the city. What other organizations operate in cells, underground cells? The Weather Underground did put out a book, Prairie Fire, The Politics of Revolutionary Anti-Imperialism, Constant Revolution, Seen as War.
That was a revolution. Mr. Madison, what you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Okay, a simple wrong would have done just fine, but...
Basically, their slogan that was in that book is victory or death. So these are people willing to give their lives, and they see themselves as purveyors of liberation, and they're willing to kill in order to liberate.
Victory or death. No justice, no peace. Similar.
Again, that's the Weather Underground. They also interfaced and worked with the Black Panthers.
Yes, they did.
And the Black Panthers were pretty radical themselves. They had no problem beating people, destroying property, those kinds of things. So there you go.
Sorry I had a fight in the middle of your Black Panther party.
It was actually a fairly small group of people.
Yep.
Radical agitators. It was still impactful. They were violent. Although I have no problem with someone being like, we shouldn't be in the Vietnam War. Let's get out of there. That wasn't their goal.
No,
it was communism.
Their goal was communism and the
through revolution.
Through revolution
right?
and the destruction of the United States government.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was absolutely anti-American. The whole concept of America being imperialist. We have the ability to basically take over anywhere that we go, and we never do.
Mm-hmm.
We're not imperialist. We helped frickin' Germany rebuild themselves after they went to war and they chose their opponent, the world, twice.
Mm-hmm.
We helped them rebuild.
Excellent point.
Yeah, we didn't take over.
We're going to help you rebuild.
Yep. Iraq, we spent tons of treasure trying to help them rebuild. Everywhere that we go, we help them rebuild. No, I'm not defending the Vietnam War. And I understand in that time, especially when the draft is in place.
Well, the interesting thing is that we go to Vietnam to try and stop communism from spreading.
Mm-hmm.
And the communists here at home want to take down the government. Yeah. Why? Because the government's trying to stop communism from spreading. Interesting little circle.
It's not what you see in your Time Life 1960s.
Right.
Peace and love and hippies and all that kind of stuff.
It was very violent.
Yeah.
The late 60s was kind of the beginning of this type of revolutionary behavior, political violence starting to break out in this country. And this is kind of where we're going with it. It's kind of the root of the political violence we're seeing today from the left. And Andy, you had a good point. They realized they couldn't overtake the system.
So the Weathermen was actually a fairly small group of agitators. And then they realized that the only way to beat the system was to infiltrate and to fight from within. And then they went underground. You know, all of this is tied to the colleges and education system.
Mm-hmm.
So you go from them attacking professors to them being the professors.
I mean, you go to universities today, and it's just full of Marxist, communist propaganda. So it's fair to say that a lot of these kids who were in school in the 60s and 70s became professors, and they still hold these beliefs.
And strangely, that also ties into communist Soviet Union. If you go and listen to that interview with Yuri.
Everyone, please go watch the interview with Yuri Bezmenov. And also he's gave some lectures that are recorded too. Your mind will explode. Holy shit.
Yeah, yeah. So we talked about that a little bit, but we're not really covering those interviews. Maybe at some point in time we can kind of delve into that. But all of this stuff is connected. But I think the most impactful is what started as the 60s revolution.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was the root of everything that is springing forth now. And young people in their 20s, that's the point in their life where they're ready to go out and take on the world and change the world. And so what better place to
infiltrate,
you know? people who want to change the world, right?
Well, and it's no coincidence that the Fist, Black Panthers,
which is the Communist Fist.
It's not a coincidence that that's the Communist Fist, and it's also what BLM used.
Yeah.
That kind of brings us into our next phase of revolutionaries.
Our next phase of revolutionaries.
Of mostly peaceful.
Mostly peaceful but fiery protests. So we're going to hit Antifa and BLM here briefly. Many Antifa or anti-fascists trace their roots back to the period after World War I, when German and Italian leftists worked together to fight fascist gangs in Europe. It sounds great. But in the United States, Antifa supporters have been increasingly active in protests and rallies. Between 1987 and 2013, the Anti-Racist Action Network was a decentralized network of anti-fascists in the United States. In the Seattle area, Antifa supporters established the Puget Sound John Brown Gun Club, which if any of you know about John Brown and Bleeding Kansas, that should worry you, which described itself as an anti-fascist, anti-racist, pro-worker community defense organization committed to active resistance to the corrosive and destructive social effects of white supremacy, sexism, bigotry, and economic exploitation. Do any of these words sound familiar? The campaign and election of Donald Trump were a boon to many anti-fascists. As the Antifa-aligned journal It's Going Down argued in December 2016, suddenly anarchists and Antifa, who have been demonized and sidelined by the wider left, have been hearing from liberals and leftists, "You've been right all along." While Antifa remained decentralized, there were some local chapters such as NYC Antifa and Anti-Fascists Sacramento. During the 2020 riots following the death of George Floyd, there were also some reports of Antifa activity. Really, some reports. In Newark, New Jersey, the FBI and Newark police arrested an individual for possessing a knife, a hatchet, and a jar of gasoline with intent to use violence. In Austin, Texas, law enforcement officials reported that Antifa was involved in violent activity, including the looting of a Target store. There's also an incident, a sidebar. I can't remember the guy's name. He was just in his car trying to get through, and they shot him in the face. I think that was in Austin. There were also law enforcement reports of Antifa activity in other cities such as Minneapolis, Minnesota, who'd have thought, Spokane, Washington, and Portland, Oregon.
Minneapolis, Minnesota. Shout out to AJ.
The FBI nevertheless assessed that criminals, not Antifa or other ideology-motivated individuals, perpetrated the vast majority of looting and violence. Other law enforcement agencies came to a similar conclusion. "We saw no organized effort of Antifa here in Los Angeles," said Josh Rubenstein, the spokesman for the police department. Yeah, of course, there's not 5,000 Antifa members in one city. They're called agitators.
Cells.
They're cells. Exactly.
Exactly.
Today, Antifa supporters maintain that fascism remains alive and must be countered with force. Many believe that militant anti-fascism is a reasonable, historically informed response to the fascist threat that persisted after 1945 and that has become menacing in recent years. Yet Antifa is not a single-issue movement, and Antifa supporters do not simply oppose fascism. Anti-fascism, Mark Bray writes in his study of Antifa, is an illiberal politics of social revolutionism applied to fighting the far right, not only literal fascists. Antifa sympathizers focus on other issues, including environmental activism, anti-war mobilization, and anti-racism. The interesting thing here is that the Weathermen or the Weather Underground co-opted the peaceful hippies because they came out against the Vietnam War.
Yes.
So they're anti-war, so they got the peace-loving hippies kind of on their side. Why were we in Vietnam? To stop communism from spreading through Asia. Meanwhile, the communists here at home were trying to undermine the government from stopping the spread of communism.
Yeah, and not to go off the rails, but they also co-opted for the abortion movement.
Mm-hmm.
Women that were legitimately for women's rights were co-opted, just like the hippies were co-opted. Good intentions gone bad.
Yeah.
You know? And that's what happens when you have a small group of agitators. And it's even worse today because a small group can do a lot of damage with the influence radius of the internet.
Yeah. One of the strings you can draw through all of these is that these revolutionaries, they grab people who are looking for some type of justice. They have some type of good intention, whether it be for society, whether it be for family, whether it be for politics. They find and co-opt people who have good intentions. If they can convince you that we're anti-fascist, who doesn't agree with that, right? Although Antifa extremists primarily use violence in the context of ideological clashes at demonstrations, some have also taken independent action against government targets perceived as unjust. In July 2019, William Van Spronson, a self-proclaimed Antifa supporter and a member of the Puget Sound John Brown Gun Club, that's a tongue twister, Puget Sound John Brown Gun Club, attacked a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement detention facility in Tacoma, Washington, with an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle and attempted to ignite a 500-gallon propane tank. The attack was unsuccessful and he was killed by police. Again, so this is very much like the Weather Underground, a decentralized network of cells that use violence,
intimidation.
And the thing that I don't like about this article, there's places where they almost try to excuse Antifa because, it's not one group, so we can't go after them.
So Biden said it himself in debate with Trump. Antifa is an idea.
And Trump's like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, because Trump was like saying, look, I'll condemn these people, but you guys got a real problem on the left.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's an idea.
Yeah. Well, May 31st, 2020, this was after Donald Trump's election, protests in D.C. If any of you remember St. John's Church, the reason that got burned down, that was Antifa that did that. And they not only set fire to St. John's Church, they broke down barricades, they set fire to a guard shack. They legitimately attempted to storm the White House. Donald Trump got put into the bunker.
Oh, bunker boy, yeah.
Yeah, remember the bunker boy? And then there was the whole kerfuffle about when Trump went out afterwards with a Bible to St. John's Church, but they were saying that they used tear gas to disperse a peaceful protest.
Give me a break.
No, they burned down a church, a historic church.
Yeah, this is not peaceful protest.
Part of that stemmed also from the BLM riots. The BLM riots started on May 26th of 2020. It was in over 2,000 cities. 19 people were killed, and there was an estimated $2 billion in property damage. $2 billion. As I was watching this, I don't condone it, obviously, right? But it's like, I understand it's a riot. You burn something down.
Something got out of control, right?
Right. But looting, what pissed me off was the looting. If you're looting, you actually have no purpose. The whole thing was exacerbated, taken advantage of. These agitators went to these cities, drummed up all the people that were pissed off for being locked in their house for months during COVID, hearing this false information that Derek Chauvin killed George Floyd, murdered him, and they burned down cities and they looted stores. That was BLM.
I won't even go into their patron saint, George Floyd,
Yeah, no,
but that was not covered adequately.
No, it was not.
Or truthfully.
Not truthfully.
There were a lot of people that were trying to put pressure on anybody involved in that case.
During the George Floyd riots, there was a pop-up of this thing. At first it was called Chaz, then they changed it to CHOP. The Chaz was Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. CHOP was Capitol Hill Occupation Protest. They took over 6 blocks in Seattle. They wouldn't let cops in. They wouldn't even let ambulances in. They did it as a form of protest. It lasted for a month or longer, culminating in a pair of shootings that killed 2 black teens. There's actually reports that other people were shot as well. This whole thing just got out of control. And you can see the parallel to this is just like whether it was the Jacobins or the Bolsheviks, it all always descends into chaos and death. Every time descends into chaos and death.
Couple things. One, if you're out there and you're expecting, never, never, ever name your child Chaz. It's not going to work out well for you or them. Another thing is When all of this happened, mayors and governors across the country were giving a stand down order because somehow this violence was justified. Meanwhile, business owners, people across the country, were boarding up their businesses and putting Black Lives Matter on the boards.
Or black-owned business, please don't
hurt me. That's
me.
what everybody was saying.
Yeah.
That's what everybody was saying. And interestingly enough, when you look at what's happening today with people that own Teslas, people are riding on the side of their Teslas. I bought this in 2020 before I knew. Please don't hurt me.
I actually put a post on X that was basically saying the exact same thing. It's like, these people are just saying, please don't hurt me. They don't care about your cause.
Yep.
They're just saying, don't hurt me. We were talking about how they infiltrated universities. The problem is now that it's gotten even worse. They've actually infiltrated the government.
Well, Barack Obama was a community organizer.
Yes. What does that mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What is a community
organizer?
What's he doing?
What does he do?
Does it have anything to do with like a festival of revolution?
Revolutionary festival?
I don't know.
Something? Maybe he organized one of those.
Maybe we need to talk to French, figure that out.
One of the bigger problems too is that these spineless politicians in the Democrat Party, there's some in the Republican Party too, are condoning it. They're condoning it. They've been taken over and they're condoning all of this.
I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
This is a movement, I'm telling you. They're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that they're not going to let up, and they should not, and they should not, and we should not.
Press always asks me, don't I wish I were debating him? No, I wish we were in high school, I could take him behind the gym. That's what I wish. They asked me, would I like to debate this gentleman? And I said, no. I said, if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
If you had to be stuck in an elevator with either President Trump, Mike Pence, or Jeff Sessions, who would it be?
Does one of us have to come out alive?
You'll see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station. You get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
When they go low, we kick them.
You cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about.
You're in the arena, you got to be ready to take a punch. You got to be ready to throw a punch for the children.
Go to the Hill today. Get up and please get up in the face of some Congress people.
I don't think even in states where Donald Trump.
Hold on, I gotta stop it. You gotta be able to be ready to throw a punch for the children.
Yeah,
that's so ridiculous.
One big that it does you any good running away from Donald Trump. I think you need to go back and punch him in the face.
Nancy Pelosi herself wasn't interested in condemning the far-left riots. Remember, people just do what they're gonna do.
Respectfully, shouldn't that be done by a commission or the city council, not a mob in the middle of the night throwing it into the harbor?
People will do what they do. I do think that from a safety standpoint, it would be a good idea to have it taken down if the community doesn't want it. I don't know that it has to be a commission.
Do you disavow the violence from Antifa? That's happening in Portland right now?
That's a myth that's being spread only in Washington, D.C.
About Antifa in Portland?
Yes.
How dare he say the things he does? Of course I want to punch him in the face.
Right.
Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
This is fake blood, just so you know. I won't give away what we're doing, but
Tyler and I are not afraid to do images that make noise.
It's Kathy Griffin in the infamous holding Trump's head.
Trump needs to be medicated and hospitalized.
Shakespeare's play Julius Caesar like you've never seen before. A man dressed to look like President Donald Trump gets stabbed to death on stage.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president? It's been a while. And maybe it's time.
That's rapper Snoop Dogg pulling the trigger on a toy gun aimed at a clown dressed as President Donald Trump.
The psychotic rage was even worse on Twitter. A few weeks ago, Deborah Messing actually hoping the president would be raped in prison.
Sean, listening to all that, it just gives me this warm, fuzzy feeling and reminds me of how we're so close to unity now that Joe Biden's about to be sworn in.
There's way more. These people are just stoking it. Some of them believe it. Some of them are stoking it. They're just spineless.
You know, you keep saying spineless. Tampon Tim just in the last week said something about, like, he was talking about masculinity in an interview, and he said something about how he could kick most conservatives' asses or something like that.
I heard. I didn't see the interview, so I can't really comment on it. But I heard about it.
I'd like him to say that to Tyrus.
Yeah,
I'd like to see that.
I'd like to see that too.
I'm not advocating for violence, but when you see these Antifa people, they are weaklings. They are cowards.
This guy's gonna hurt us, woman?
No, Donnie. These men are cowards.
They mask themselves. They're all covered in black, always wearing, you can't see anything but their eyes. They've got helmets on.
Yeah, they're cowards.
They're cowards.
This has started to infect the public now, the revolutionary sentiment. There's a huge backlash against Elon Musk because of what he's doing with Doge. People are vandalizing individual Teslas. People are setting charging stations on fire. People are setting dealerships on fire. People are shooting into dealerships. They've actually arrested one gentleman in one of the dealership attacks in Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He set the dealership on fire. Among other things, he spray painted all over everything, and they actually caught him.
As of now, a preliminary assessment, and we have a lot of data to go through and a lot of investigative work that needs to be followed up on, but a preliminary assessment of the suspect's social media activity indicates some very loose but self-proclaimed ties to the Communist Party USA social media group, as well as social media groups called Revolutionary Communist International, Hidden Palestine, Palestine Action, and a variety of other social media groups. That is part of our investigation, is to dig further into it and to be able to determine additional motive and other potential concerns. At this point in time, the suspect was placed immediately on 24/7 surveillance by our specialized units to ensure public safety and preserve evidence. Additional evidence was collected as we continued our investigation, and the suspect was ultimately arrested yesterday evening.
I won't let all that play through. He just kind of goes into some details. But the main thing that I wanted to point out here was his affiliations, who he's affiliated with.
To the Communist Party USA, Revolutionary Communist International, Hidden Palestine, Palestine Action.
This is a severe problem. The communists have awakened. This is for real. They've infected the universities. They've even infected K through 12. They've gotten into the government. And because they've infected all these places, it's now seen by these communist regular people that it's okay now for them to go out into society, wreak havoc, and their revolutionary spirit has awakened.
The violence is consistent throughout time. And this is not to say that there's not violence on the right. But when you look at the media, the coverage, the way people are educated, even just the simple fact that college-educated people don't look at communist Russia, they don't put those people on the same level as Hitler. And it's like, it's equally evil. Hitler had a lot of pepper on it, but
yeah, if you're going by raw numbers, you know, Stalin and Mao blew him out of the park.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Those two combined over 100 million people.
They should be in the same conversation with historically evil leaders.
For some reason, it's not. Why is that?
And it's okay for the media to blatantly relate Trump with Hitler.
Yeah.
It's so backwards.
It's
K through 12, all through college, all these educated people.
It's all of these pseudo-intellectuals. If you look back through even the Bolshevik Revolution, it all started in what they called the bourgeois class. The French Revolution sparked out of the Enlightenment because it is pseudo-intellectualism. They think that just because they've learned some facts and figures, maybe even some history, that they're better than everyone else. I'm sorry, but you're not better than everyone else.
That's why Obama says bitter Americans clinging to their guns and religion. It's no different. If you listen to what these people say when they accidentally say the quiet part out loud, throughout history, it's the same. It's the same. You know what Stalin said he was going to do and what Lenin said they were going to do for the working class, for justice and equality, all of these things. That's what he said he was bringing for them. What he brought was death and true fascism, because you cannot disagree. These Antifa people, they don't even know what fascist is, because if they look in a mirror, they would realize, look, people want a cause. People want something to be mad about. People want something to be passionate about. People want to give their life purpose. People want to, they want to make their relevance more than what it is. People are looking for a cause, you know?
Yeah, I think you're right.
And a lot of people have been funneled into this way of thinking, you know?
And I think that we're at a really dangerous point now, because now you have the intersection of people who want to have a purpose and fight for something. They're intersecting with the internet culture now of getting clicks, getting views. So now they can even more easily infect and spread their evil. X is full of video clips. All the Tesla cars have like 7 cameras on them. So everyone who's keying a Tesla, they're on video. There's one I posted on our X account of a woman at a Tesla just kind of like giving fingers to all the cameras. And someone videoed her doing that and she posted it. It's like, not that it's even something good to believe in, but I don't even think she legitimately believes in it. She's just trying to get clicks.
Did you see that? Did you see that 300-pound guy that was driving a four-wheeler?
No, it was homemade.
It's like a homemade four-wheeler, like trying to ram a Cybertruck or something.
Yeah, a stainless steel with a homemade four-wheeler.
I'm sorry.
It was good.
I'm looking forward to when we can share video with you guys, because
we've got some doozies.
Because I'm not. It doesn't, painting the picture verbally does not do it justice.
No, it does not. It does not. It's hilarious. The guy's like probably 300 or 400 pounds.
Just driving this.
And he looks like an absolute idiot.
This weird four-wheeler. It's like a frame of a four-wheeler. It's not even like.
I think it had like a lawnmower engine on it or something.
I don't know.
It was,
He was not moving quickly either. It looked like it hurt him more than it hurt the truck.
Well, yeah, because you see, like, he flies forward. I'm sure that he had to have face planted into the truck.
Oh, man. Anyway, sorry.
No, but I think like we're at a really dangerous point now because of the influencer culture. You know, a lot of people are going to start taking this up just as a way to boost their presence, their online persona, and it can spread really quick. I mean, look how fast this whole boycott Tesla and deface and destroy Tesla thing has moved. It's been, what, like 2 weeks as of the recording of this since it started? I mean, they've already caught one guy who set one of them on fire. There's been a dealership that was shot at. It's insane.
I think you're probably right. There's probably some people that are trying to get attention. Any attention is good attention, right? My concern is the people that are actually mentally unstable.
Yes.
I mean, there have been 2 assassination attempts on our current president that we don't really have much information about.
No, they're not turning it over.
Contrary to Joe Biden's take on it, violence is not something that is exclusive to the right by any means. And if anything, you can see from the 60s till now, the infiltration and deployment of, let's just call it what it is, they're communists. You can see the development of that and how it has escalated. The summer of 2020 and the lack of coverage of the damage, the fact that the Democrats supported them all. These people are paid thugs for the Democrat Party. It's mob tactics.
And Democrats were bailing them out of jail, the ones that got arrested.
Yeah, so there's a disconnect in the mainstream media and I think in the mainstream mind. They don't recognize these people are the enforcers. They're the enforcers for the woke left.
Yes. I hope you all could follow the string and the parallels that we were trying to paint. If nothing else, you can hear it through the verbiage.
Just the words.
The words. You can hear it through the words.
Yep.
Even if we did a bad job of drawing the line for you. You know, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. I'm hearing and seeing a lot of rhymes right now. The biggest rhyme that I see with today is actually the French Revolution, with what the Jacobins were doing. It was very culty. It was very religious-like, even though it was trying to de-Christianize.
Equality and justice, but only for one side.
Equality and justice, but for one side. Kill everyone else who disagrees with us. We don't believe in the state apportioning property, but we should all have the same amount of property. We're all created equal, so we're going to take away from the people who have more to give it to the people who have less. Those were stated sentiments of the French Revolution. And this is exactly what you hear and what you see happening now. So we need to be careful that the guillotines don't come out.
I don't have too much more to say, but I'll say this. People have floated the idea of civil war even recently. The right doesn't want it, but the left is making a mistake if they're going to try to push it. That's a huge error in judgment. The Weather Underground had it right. Infiltrate and attack America from within. The violence is not okay. It's not okay no matter who does it. It's not okay to attack people and private property and set things on fire. It's not okay what happened in 2020. Boarding up businesses and people basically writing, "Please don't hurt me," on the outside of their property. And then governors and mayors saying, "Stand down, do nothing to protect these people." It's not okay. Don't mistake our kindness for weakness, and don't mistake our patriotism for weakness. Mm-hmm. We want good things for all Americans. But lefties, civil war, it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea.
And remember, I'm saying with all due respect, that idea ain't worth a velvet painting of a whale and a dolphin getting it on.
Yeah. The real patriots have most of the guns.
You need to think about enacting violence.
What I'm afraid of is that because of the environment right now, I almost feel like that's what they're hoping for. They're hoping for a right-wing retaliation because that's going to get the press, and the bias of the press is going to paint it in a completely inaccurate light.
Yeah, stay cool.
So yeah, everyone out there, violence begets more violence.
When you see this sort of desperation, just know you've already won.
Yep.
You've already won. That's why they're so desperate.
They're in their death throes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And remember, they wanted J6. They encouraged it. They wanted it. And look at what they did with it. Don't let them do that again. Don't let that happen.
Defend America. Defend it through peace.
Yeah.
Defend it through intellect. Defend it through lawful means.
Yeah, make these people look like the violent idiots that they are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody. That was a interesting one. Like I said, hopefully you guys could see where we were trying to go with that and the threads we were trying to connect. We're getting there. Again, you can catch us on YouTube and Rumble. Rumble, please, if you prefer, at Return of the Logos. You can follow us on X at Returning Logos and True Social at Return of the Logos. We'll see you again next time.
Thanks for all your support, guys.